right. Well, let's get going. I'm Juice out of New York, and let's see, new experiences. This is kind of crazy, which I remember happening before. I've been practicing a lot more now on my OBE. So what I did is I went to bed, and I tried to hold my consciousness awake as my body fell asleep. And I did that for about an hour and a half with no success. So I ended up falling asleep eventually. Then in the morning, I did a wake back to bed exercise. I tried to hold my consciousness. I stayed up for about 45 minutes and tried to hold my consciousness there as my body fell asleep. No success. And then a couple hours later, I wake up with this huge brain fog. So I just screwed up my brain, which I noticed this happened before in the past when I started practicing a lot. So the whole day I had brain fog the whole day, just like my brain was screwed up the whole day. Yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of OD on trying, you know, on the techniques and
yeah,
just lying there for so long. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So I remember from my past notes, it goes with the territory when I started practicing a lot in the beginning. So, yeah. Which I'm starting to do now again. All right, Susan, go ahead. Your turn.
I'm Susan. I'm from Texas, Texas Gulf Coast, and I'm an astral projector. I have been for a really long time, since I was young, and I've taught classes in it. I've written about it, and just, you know, I love talking about it. I just, you know, I really love it. I think it's a useful tool. You know, there's so much that you can do with it once you become proficient. There are things, you know, for me, it was a way to serve. And that was the best part of it for me. It was just a way to serve, to do things, you know, get out and do things for other people.
Thanks, Susan. Jason.
Yeah, I'm here. I was just making hot chocolate.
Where's mine?
It's in the mail. No new like astral projection or anything stuff. Robert Wagner is having a free webinar with Ions this Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific. If y'all are interested in that, Robert Wagner is really good for that.
Cool. All right, Jace, thanks. David?
Hey, how you doing, Juice? Hello, everybody. That's Jace.
What's up, David?
What's up, guys? Jace, thanks a million for those links. As soon as I find out what's the next book we're going to be reading, I'm going to definitely jump on that. And I really appreciate that. What can I say is I actually enjoyed the first 2 chapters that we had to review for today. The last one, but I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Awesome. Me too. All right. Well, let's get into the book. 13. All right, guys. Journeys Out of the Body, chapters 13, 14, and 15 tonight. We're moving along. Be done before you know it. Hopefully we have lots of fun and learn something. I'm going to pull up the beginning of the book here. I'm going to share it. All right, so on 13 here, the second body he gets into, talking about experiments, analytical experiments. And he wants to find the existence of the second body. If it exists, what is it like? What are the characteristics? Through several hundred tests, here are the excerpts from his notes. He gets in some story time here from his notes. So hundreds of experiments here he talks about. So the one thing that I pulled out of this chapter here, started off, he felt like there was a man on his back during some of his out-of-body experiences, and he couldn't figure it out. So for a few of them, he kept trying them over and over, and he kept feeling somebody on his back. Felt whiskers, he felt parts of the body and stuff, until he realized it was himself. So I thought that was pretty cool that, you know, he was able to find out that the person on his back was himself after having all these other entities and stuff from previous chapters on his back. So he was also scared at the time too. What the heck is this on his back? Turns out to be himself.
Yeah.
Would anybody like to add to it? Thoughts, concerns, experiences?
Regarding that particular topic or something from that chapter?
You can either do from that, what I just talked about, David, or something else, because nobody's got their hand up or anything. So you can either do that or just move on to another topic on that chapter.
Let me get my hand up there. Okay, I'll wait for a second to see if somebody else has something to add.
Go ahead, Susan.
Oh, I just, I was thinking about that part of the book where he said he felt the, you know, somebody close to his body. He finally realized it was him, because I know he said that he could feel that he hadn't shaved, and there were things, you know, that were just strange to him. And it was funny. It was actually funny to me, because I know he thought, you know, it said in the book, you know, he thought, well, it's just like I don't know if he thought it was a pervert or what. It's a strange thing. No, it's a really strange thing to hover around your own body, you know, to be that close to your body. Usually if I get really close to my body, it's going to pull me in. But I have taken the time, especially you know, in my 30s and 40s, where I really thought I was just mapping a bunch of new territory, that I did go back purposefully and look at my body, my physical body, and, you know, lying there. And I wanted to touch it, but I didn't want to get pulled back in. I was very cautious. You know, you can stretch your arms will stretch across the room. You know, you can stand 8 feet away and just reach way over and touch it. But I did touch it. And I didn't like the way it felt, the physical body. It was, you know, I was really glad to get away from it, always glad to get away from it, because it just feels like a lump of clay to me. And it feels so inanimate. It doesn't feel, when you're out of it and you look at it and you touch it, it feels inanimate. It doesn't feel like there's really much there. And it feels like it would be really heavy to put back on. So that was my observation, you know, at that time of the same thing, but that was as close as I ever got. I never hovered right above and just, you know, like that. I've never done that, but I just cracked up when I read it, because it was so funny that he had done that. And I know how startling that must have been for him.
Yeah, he got into it. He was feeling all over his body, and it was weird. He was saying his toe and stuff like that, and everything was opposite.
Yeah.
Like he felt his left toe and it was his right.
Weird. Yeah. See, all I ever did was touch my face. I just touched my face. I wanted to see what it felt like energetically to me as an astral, you know, as an etheric, my etheric form or whatever. I wanted to see what that felt like. And I didn't like it. I didn't care for it, but it is what it is. You know, it's just, it really exemplifies to you if you can do that, you know, if you get out, even if you just look at your body, even if you don't touch it or hover right by it or anything, it really drives home the fact that the body is animated by our consciousness, you know, by us. Without what we are, the body's nothing. It really is just you know, it's a form. It's you know, it's like our car. It's like a car, you know, it's my little avatar. But yeah, but I admired, you know, how much he did thorough note taking. I admired that. I've got notes like that going back, boy, 40 years, that are similar but different. Everybody's are different. But I always love to hear what anybody has to say when they actually turn around and look at their body, or if they just bounce above it. Because I've seen people, you know, I've had to share a hotel room with cousins before when we're different things, and I, you know, I'll lay awake at night and I've seen them come out and float above their body, and it's like, surely they feel that, they know that but they don't. You know, they just move out and curl up in a fetal position and they just sleep there. You know, so they're just unaware of it. But Yeah, it's just, I liked that. That was a fun chapter. And
David?
Okay, so what was actually caught my attention was his visit to RW. He doesn't give her name, but he just refers to her as RW, and the manageable form that he was explaining that you can well, not physically, your second state can take. So I don't know if you guys, the RW paragraph is when he visits this person, he believes is astrally, and when he arrives there, he waves to her, but she didn't. The RW, the individual did not respond. She did respond, but not in the way as if she was certain that she was seeing him. And then the following day, she called him up and said, "Hey, listen, did you by chance come and visit me last night?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I saw a kind of a form waving at me, and I didn't know who that was. And she said, "Next time, please give me a better sign, because that scared the hell out of me." What I found interesting about that, and then further in this chapter, he talks about how the physical form can take on different shapes. Sorry, the second state form can take on different shapes.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I'm not trying to be negative here, but that's very concerning. That if this is possible, that someone can actually project, interact with another human being. Maybe there's circumstances, because he talked about light, certain type of light source that can affect that, and at the same time take on a different shape. That could explain quite a bit regarding individuals feeling like they are being visited by a number of entities.
Right. Yeah, he gets into where could this be the source of werewolves and vampire bat mythology?
And that I kept going over that chapter and those paragraphs over and over and over again. I was just stumped on it. I really
Do you think,
well, yeah, go ahead, Juice.
David, do you think people could be using this to mess with certain people?
God, I always try to stay grounded, but if people have the capability to do this, I would say people definitely would do it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if there's
Yeah.
if there's anything I've learned is, you ever heard of the saying, patience is a virtue?
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, most humans believe that's a biblical statement or a quote, but it's not a biblical quote. Actually, it's a quote from a poet, a European poet, but it was used so much during I don't think 16th or 17th century that it eventually people started just using it as a biblical quote. So where am I going with this? Is that you don't have to. I personally don't think you have to be a virtuous nature to be able to do these things, if you're capable of doing these things. I don't know. I question whether or not you have to be at a certain high positive vibration to achieve these different states of consciousness and subconscious states. So I would have to say, if he's saying it's possible and he's seen it, that you can change your form and at the same time interact with the living, the material plane, then I would say, yeah, there are individuals out there. If they can do this, they will probably be hounding and going after whoever they just don't like in a malicious manner, which is
Right.
sad.
Susan?
Regarding that, it's been my experience, like when I've been out of body, if I do something that's particularly goofy, I mean, I've never done anything to try to harm anyone ever, you know, that's not my nature, but I am sure, I do believe that you're right, that it could be used if somebody is proficient at this, and they could use it because we have psychic spies, we have people, they're trained to do this, and they go and gather information for espionage and things, and just individuals that learn how to do this, because there's a lot of people that or there's some people that are born and just seem to be geared toward this, And if they spend enough time and they learn to maneuver out of body comfortably, and so that they're, you know, really good at it, yeah, you could go and you could, you know, do something. You go spy on somebody, you go watch somebody shower or whatever, you know. You do bad things. But what I've always seen when with other and talk to other people who've had, you know, similar experiences along those lines, is that if they've done something in particular that was not beneficial to someone else, they later had trouble getting out of body again. They would have trouble. It would be harder for them, because there are beings out there who monitor us. I mean, we all have our spiritual guides, or whatever your term is for them. We have them. I've always had at least one that accompanied me, you know, when I was learning to do this, and when I was first learning to go to the people who had been injured, sick, whatever. And anytime I did anything goofy, I just did silly stuff in the beginning, but they would always just, it was almost like being on vaudeville, and they put the hook out and pull you back. You know, it's like, no, let's talk about this, and we're gonna do it differently. So I think that if you abuse something, you know, like this, I do think, and it may not be everybody, because some people are just so proficient and not great people, that if they do this, they just keep, you know, I don't know who wrestles them down or anything. I don't know, because I haven't experienced that myself. I just know for myself when I've done anything silly or goofy, or not quite, because I would just get I would get very exuberant early on, you know, and it was mostly exuberance that made me do silly things. And I would always be taken back. It's like, no, we're going to take a little time here, and we're going to, you know, this is how it should go. And this is, you know, this is what you're out here for. And this is what, you know, and then also he asked about taking other forms. I've taken many forms out of body, but never in a malicious way, never in a bad way. I've done it for ease of travel. And I think I said this the last time I was here, I think it was last Friday or last Wednesday, I don't know. When I travel, I don't like heights. So usually I don't use the human shape form to travel. If I'm traveling high and traveling far, I will just compact it down into an orb, you know, just, I don't even know how big it is. It feels to me like it's probably about this big around, just an orb of, and I know that I'm light. I can tell that I'm light, and I'll travel to my destination, go down, and, you know, just lightly come down to earth, and then change back. I've changed into just little, almost like smaller than a butterfly, just a little thing just to travel around. But it for me, you know, it's never been, there's never been any negativity associated with it. But I understand what you were saying about there are people that could do so. I'm sure they could. And I have interacted with lots of people in the material world, lots of people, because they've asked me to, and I did. I've you know, I've talked to people. If you go, okay, sometimes when I was traveling, I would go looking for someone who knew something I was trying to learn. And for some reason, out of body, I would know who I was looking for. I would know who I was targeting. I don't even know how I knew who they were. But at one time, I went to a university in this country. I do not know where it was. I don't know where it was. But I was looking for a professor who, and I don't even remember what his expertise was at the time, but I was looking for him because there was something that I wanted to learn. I'd read about him, and I went to that university out of body, and I went through the hallways, and I was trying to think, how will I find this man? Because I don't know him. I don't know how to tune into his energy or anything. I was just going by his name, but it did get me to the school where he taught, the college. And I asked people in the hallway, I stopped and asked a couple people, and they stopped. When you communicate with them, you're out of body. This has been my experience, for me anyway. If I try to ask someone for directions out of body, you know, no GPS out there, sometimes. But if I stop and ask a person in the hallway and tell them I'm looking for Professor so-and-so, do you know him? Do you know where I could find him? I talked to 2 people that directed me, and they would stop what they were doing and they would stand there, and it was almost like they were just staring for a second, you know, it's just, but they would telepathically, they would communicate with me. And this finally one guy knew who I was talking about, and he said, I don't take his class, but I know who you're talking about. And he said, it's lunchtime, so he should be coming out of building such and such. So I went over that way and I watched, and I just stayed outside and I watched until this man came out, and I could, you know, he had his books and stuff, and it was an older man. I figured that was who he was. So I went up and talked to him then and asked him if he was Professor so-and-so, which he said, yes, he was, telepathically. And I told him why I was there. And I said, I'm traveling astrally, but I wanted to learn some things that you're teaching here. And it was so remarkable. This is the first time I ever experienced this before, but the man said, well, it's lunchtime. He said, what if I just join you? And I said, you mean you're going to get out of body? And he said, oh, yes. And he said, let me put my things down here under the tree. He said, I usually sit here and eat my lunch. And he just leaned back against the tree, closed his eyes, and took a few deep breaths and just whoosh, and he was out of body. And we stood there, we talked for the longest time. I don't even remember what. I know it's in my notes, but it's probably 30 years ago that this happened. So I don't remember what we talked about. I don't remember what his expertise was or anything. But yeah, there's an interaction. You can definitely interact with them telepathically, but intent is everything. And I just think if your intent is not on the up and up, in my experience, I've always had people that were I mean, beings out there who guided me and steered me correctly to do everything correctly for everybody, you know, that I interacted with. So sorry, that was a little.
Oh, thanks, Susan. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Julie?
Hi there.
Hi.
I realized at the beginning I waved instead of raising my hand. I'm a little new to this. That's really great to hear, Susan, especially the part about, because that was kind of scary to think what David brought up of somebody trying to come in and mess with you, that maybe it's harder and harder for them to get out when they don't play nice. That would be good. And I was really encouraged to hear that we could take different shapes, because my very first, well, I've only had a couple partials and then one fully conscious, like wide awake, out of body. And I was just like a mist. I don't know. I didn't, my eyes weren't open, so I could sense what I was. And I was just like this cloudy, misty kind of, you know, shifting thing, you know. So I was thinking, why, that's weird. Why didn't I just become like an astral body, a double or something? And I just kind of floated there instead of in a second body or astral body. I just kind of floated like a cloud. And so that was very encouraging for me to hear. I go, okay, so I'm not crazy or weird. Just want to share that. Oh. And hi, Susan, nice to meet you.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
I'm from the lady from Facebook.
You're from where?
I'm the lady that messaged you from Facebook.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, we friended each other. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Julie. All right. So back to, shape shifting, as David was talking about, which is pretty good, because Monroe is wondering if that's what people are doing, shape shifting into different things, and that's what how certain mythology started up about certain things, vampires, werewolves, and stuff like that. The next part, he ended up going through a wall at one point. He actually got stuck on the wall when he was out of body, which confused him because he never got stuck outside a wall before. He's always went through them. So this time he got stuck outside the wall, and eventually he made his way through the wall, feeling all of the materials in the wall as he went through it, every single layer of the materials that were inside the wall. So that was pretty interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, Susan.
Comment on that. Yeah, that was one of the first things that I learned when I acquired a guide because I was allowed about 10 years of really active fun, just getting used to it, getting in and out, having a lot of fun with it. And then I acquired a guide, the guide that I suppose, I was supposed to become proficient enough so that they could take me and then teach me how to do this other while I was out of body, which is probably maybe the whole reason that I'm an astral traveler. I don't know, but yeah, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say now. What would somebody just say?
About the feeling through the wall when you went through it, feeling all
one of the first things they did, when they started coming and I would get out of body and they would be right there, and it was often a woman. It was often a feminine presence. I could tell it was a feminine presence, and but they took me out in my yard one day, had me go out there out of body, and they showed me, had me stop by a tree and said, now pass your arm through the tree. Reach out like this and swing your arm through the tree before you go through it. Swing your arm through and tell me what you feel. And yeah, you can feel everything. You can feel the life in that tree. You can feel that it's alive, and I saw everything completely differently when I came back. I see all plants, everything completely differently. They're living beings. And passing through walls, you don't need a stud finder if you're an astral traveler. You can pass through, you can tell where the studs are in your wall, you can tell how thick the drywall is. It's, if you're really paying attention, you can feel all of this stuff as you pass through. It's amazing. It's just this, you just pass right through these solid objects, and you can just feel the density of the object. You feel its vibration, its density. It's a little denser than the air around you, and you just go right through it. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
All right, and then Monroe gets into the silver cord in this chapter. He felt the cord. He felt something pulling him back for the first time, and he thought that might be the silver cord that everybody talks about. So he gets into that, and let's see here. What do we got for time? 7:30. I know Mike's going to be starting his meetings. Some people are going to leave for that. I'm going to throw up a poll here for everybody before people take off for that other meeting. Jason, Stephanie, probably. So here's a poll, some questions on it. This is for all 3 chapters. Okay. Share. I'm going to end the polling here. And I'm going to share the results with everybody. Have you ever shape-shifted in a dream or OBE? It's like we got, from what we did, 100% yes. Has anyone on the physical plane ever see you while you were out of your body or dreaming? 50%, 57% yes. 29% no, and 14 not sure. Have you ever seen your silver cord? Most people haven't. Have you ever had a falling dream? Just about everybody said yes to that. Does your physical brain help make decisions while out of body? We're kind of split on this one. 50-50 on yes and not sure, 14% no.
I didn't see that one. I missed that one, I guess.
Have you ever had out of body sex? 57% yes, 43% no. And is out of body sex considered cheating on your partner? 14% said yes, 43% said no, and 43% said not sure. Would anybody like to comment on that poll? Julie.
I was just wondering, the only time that I was really fully out, well, no, 2 times. I did that black void situation. Both times I felt like I was thinking with my brain, my physical brain, but I'm curious to know what everyone else, like the ones that said no, how how do you know you're not? It's felt the same to me. So I'm curious if anyone can answer that.
All right, who's brave to answer that question out there?
I'll answer my view of it. I mean, I think, ask the question, state that again, Julie, would you say the question again?
Oh, well, for those who said, no, I don't think I'm using my physical brain when I'm out there, I'm wondering what the difference, how do you, like, can you describe the differences?
I know how that feels, because it feels like you're thinking, your thought process doesn't change drastically from being in body and being out of body. But the way I reconcile that, what it seemed to me like is what we really think with our brain is a tool. I mean, our brain is an organ that we use. It's like our computer. I don't think that we live in our brain. We're consciousness. And I think that it seems to me that even you still have contact. I mean, you're still getting input from your brain out of body because you are attached with a civil cord. Now, if you weren't attached, your brain wouldn't be working, but you still, I've worked with people who have passed over for years, and their thought, even though their civil cord has detached when their body passes away, they're exactly the same. Their thought processes are the same. Everything is the same. It's consciousness. I believe that I believe that's the answer to it. It's just consciousness.
Right.
Yeah, our brain's a processor, and it's a useful tool, and we do use it. I think that we do use it somewhat out of body too, but we're just consciousness.
Maybe
And
more likely that our physical brain feels like we're thinking with our astral brain. Maybe it's the other way around. We don't know that though. But I did read that when you come back from out of body, you are, well, this is what I read. This is something I read or heard from it's an International Academy of Consciousness, interesting academy, but that you do have a different way of storing information when you're out of body. And then when you come back to your physical body, there is some kind of transfer or download that does have to happen from what the information that you got into your physical brain. Who knows how that works, but that's what I read once. I thought that was really fascinating.
it is. I'm sorry. I mean,
no, please.
For me, when I taught class, because this is something that I learned to do a long time ago, getting out, you get out and because you can lose it when you get back in, you can forget it. You can fall asleep, you can get into your body and you're so relaxed, you might doze off and you might forget what you did out of body. But I would come into my body. Instead of getting up immediately, I would reintegrate really carefully, make sure that I was well seated in my body, no headache or anything like that, and then just lie there and wait for that to upload. Because once you get back in your body, if you allow it, it just uploads into your brain. Everything that you've done, that it becomes part of that, your memory process. Then it becomes part of your physical memory or whatever. It's something that you can bring back, and it just merges with your physical brain, your physical thinking activity. It all just uploads.
Great. And towards the end of this chapter here, we get into electrical fields he talks about. And Monroe says that electrical fields might be a out-of-body ghost catcher, possibly, that people can use to protect themselves, or to even maybe the president has astral protectors around the presidents or certain people and stuff with electrical fields that they can set up. He wants to know, does the electrical fields, they attract the second body to them too as well, and plus you can get trapped in them.
Yeah.
He got pulled to a high voltage area while OBEing. So I thought that was interesting. Anybody have any experiences with electrical fields while out of body?
Yes.
Susan?
No, I have had, I've found that electricity is, I used to live in a different house in a few miles from here, and my bedroom where I did my astral projection practices had in the garage outside of my bedroom, a wall in the garage had a junction box, an electrical junction box kind of thing there, big breaker box or whatever it is you call it. And to go straight through my wall over my bed, which I like to do. I mean, I tried to do on several occasions and I couldn't get through it. And I wondered about that. What is it about this wall that I can't get through? And then I noticed on other occasions that I would be drawn to utility poles and I would go up and hover. It's like it attracts you. Electricity attracts you, but it can also prevent you from going beyond it. If you're, I couldn't get past the junction box. I went out and looked in my garage just to see what is there on that wall. It was electricity. It was a big, breaker box, big one. And I couldn't get through that. It was electricity. So it can be a barrier, act as a barrier, but it also attracts you too. It's a strange thing. Electricity is a strange thing out of body. If my dog, can y'all hear my dog?
Yeah.
I'm going to close my doors so maybe you can hear something.
I'm going to pull up here. So he gets into the cord here that he actually feels his cord. And he, as he turns to look for the cord, but it was not visible to him. Either it was too dark or not there. And then he reached around his head, and coming out from the front back of his head, he brushed against something. He felt behind him with both hands. So he gets a little bit in here to the silver cord, and he says it's a 2-inch thick cable. It was body worn to the touch. It seemed to be composed of hundreds and thousands of tendon-like strands packed neatly together, but not twisted or spiraled. It was flexible and seemed to have no skin covering. Satisfied that it existed, he took off and went. So, pretty interesting observation of the silver cord there. Susan, go ahead.
Oh, silver cord, all I can add, yeah, I've seen it on lots of occasions. It comes out of whichever chakra you project out of, and it can come out of the front aspect of your chakra or the rear aspects. It comes out of the rear aspect of your chakra back there, whichever one. Usually it's going to be from solar plexus up, generally. It is harder to see if it's back there. It's not going to be as noticeable if it's back there. I've only done that. No, I've never had it come out of my back. I've always had it come either out of my heart, third eye, or top of my head. And mine is silver green. It's not silver, it's silver green. It's beautiful, emerald silver green. And close to the body, it's about this big around. And the further away you get, the tinier it gets, to the point where it's just like silk, like a strand of silk. It's so tiny, but you can hold it in your hand and you can feel the energy moving through it. You can call energy into your astral body and feel it coming. It feels like blood pumping through this. It feels like blood coursing through a vein. That's what it feels like, only a big one. And you can also lighten your astral body by sending energy from your astral body back to your physical, and you can feel it passing that way. If you need a lighter astral body, you want to go further. So it's a very beautiful thing. It's right there. I got out of body one time. The funniest thing that ever happened to me with my cord. I had laid down and it was just for fun. I wasn't really trying to get out. I was trying to take a nap, but I got out of body and I sat up and I stood up beside my bed, and I still had, if you lie down in clothes, you generally have the same clothes on when you're out of body. It's the way it works. Or you can create something else for you. But I had this long artist shirt, kind of long cotton artist shirt on, and I stood up and I started to move away and something was tugging at me. And I was, what is this? And I couldn't figure what it was. And I thought, well, where's my cord? And so I could tell that it was coming out the front of my solar plexus, but what it had done was it was out my solar plexus and it was under my shirt, over my shoulder, and it was coming out the back of the hem of my shirt. like that. And it was like, oh, this is not comfortable. You know, I don't want to go with this all twisted up. So I got back in and fixed everything and came back out. But had come out my solar plexus that time, gone up the front, over my shoulder, down my back, and it was coming out the back hem. So when I was moving, I could feel it pulling at this garment that I was wearing astrally. It was a really strange thing.
Wow. All right, guys. Chapter 14. Chapter 14 to me was some tough reading. I'd say it was the toughest chapter for me to, like, I had to keep reading stuff over and over to get a grasp on it. One thing that Monroe asks is, how do you know you aren't dreaming right now? And what you're experiencing is nothing more than a vivid dream or hallucination when you're out of body, which a lot of people say.
Yeah.
So how do you know it's just not a hallucination or you're just dreaming? And then he asks, well, how do you know you're not dreaming right now? So anybody like to comment on that? That's the beginning of the chapter 14.
I had a very crude way. So let me come in. I had a very crude way of determining whether it was a dream or whether it was an astral projection. Normally, so I get lucid in a dream. Either the dream dissolves, or even the characters. If I focus my attention on those dream characters, they all collapse. Okay, but on the astral plane, that doesn't happen. I once found myself on the astral plane, and I wasn't quite sure whether I was on the astral plane. So I saw a character, an astral being coming. So I swung a punch at him right in his stomach, but just to see what was going to happen. And he just stared at me because they're not able to. Astral beings are not able to express anger, but they can give you a cold stare. They can look at you with a very cold stare, like there's slits in their eyes, and that usually means that they're pissed off, because things like that don't happen to them, where someone would just come and punch them for no reason. I do follow my drift, because people in the astral plane don't fight against each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's my experience, and that's how I could tell. And also, your state of consciousness is not the same. Your vision becomes a bit blurred. If you move from astral into a dream, your vision is not as, things are not as clear. They're a bit fuzzy. They're not the same kind of. It's like moving from a digital camera to the older one, mono or something like that. That's the difference with your vision, and even the senses, even your senses, because the astral body also has got astral senses, directed by our psychic brain, the hypothalamus. That is the part that is responsible for our brain. It's like our psychic brain, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Funn.
Yeah.
Julie?
I have very little experience, but for me, the way it was very obvious between a lucid dream and the times that I considered that I had an OBE. The dreams were in my OBEs, I was just wide awake like I am now, completely just conscious, wide awake, nothing seemed to change. In my dream, no, my lucid dreams are quite vivid and beautiful, and I control them, but the ones that I've had, but no, I don't feel like I do at all consciously awake. I could tell it's a dream. Yeah. I know it's a dream, right. And then when I had the OBEs, I was like, okay, this is definitely not a dream. Except for a couple of my partial ones. I think I had some mixture. I was trying to, the early on ones. And I still don't know. One time I thought I got out. It was very heavy and very blurry. And then I feel like I fell into a dream. Mm-hmm. So it just wasn't lucid enough, I guess. That happened a couple times. And then when I had just my, my partial where I lifted my legs, and one time I lifted my arms, I couldn't get the whole body out. I didn't feel as awake and conscious as I did during the other two. So it's probably just levels of lucidity and levels of awareness.
Yeah, it does get a little complicated in those areas. The different phasing levels, he calls it,
Right.
Monroe, and the later parts phasing. David, did you have a question?
No, I think Julie pretty much covered what I was going to ask. Is I've been in those. I think I mentioned it a week or two ago about how I've had those, and I just don't know how to classify them beside dreams, where I had full conscious discussions with individuals that I have never met. I don't know who they are, and I would go around touching the ground, touching the walls, breathing the air, touching water, and it felt very, very, very real. That while I was there, I would say to myself, "This is too real to be just a dream." Even though I know I'm awake in my dream.
Right. That goes into Monroe saying that the conscious mind is a blend of consciousness, unconsciousness, and supermind. That's what he breaks it down into, which are all working back and forth at different locales when you're out of the body, and how all three of those work together with each other. So he gets into bad habits can carry over into the second state. But once you identify your bad habits in the second state, they're no longer bothersome. So he had a story on there where he was in the second state, and an entity came up to him, and he thought the entity was going to steal his wallet because he brought his habits from his physical plane into the second state and got confused and realized that there is no wallet. He doesn't have to worry about his wallet being stolen in the second state.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then he gets back into the part where he had his precognitions and stuff without the plane crashes and stuff like that, and how his different parts of his consciousness were interpreting that in the second state, and how your mind uses objects to fill in the information that it doesn't know. So he talks about some of his out-of-body experiences, and one of his neighbors was loading a device into his trunk that he couldn't identify because he didn't know what the heck it was. So his mind just brought up some type of machine that was closest match to it. But then you might ask yourself, well, is this stuff being downloaded when he gets back to his body and then being interpreted into it? Or is it actually happening in real time? Would anybody like to talk about that, what they think? I know Robert Bruce gets into that, I think, a little bit. But I think, Stephanie, are you on? Jason?
Yeah, can I come in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Usually one of the best way that I have found that is very helpful for me to have total recall from these experiences is from the onset. When you're having that experience, even though it's very clear that period of time, you always have to leave a command that you would remember everything, your total recall when you get back. Or else if you don't, you can lose all that information. All that data could be lost.
That's
You remember
true.
I mentioned something about downloading data from the higher mind, from your higher mind to the lower mind. Sometimes it could be fragmented. The message could be fragmented. Even though you got it in clarity, you still have to bring it down.
Do you feel it's being fragmented when you get back to your body, when your brain starts interpreting it? Or is it fragmented when it actually happens?
what you're trying to do is to download something from the higher mind to the lower mind. So the lower mind is operated by the brain. The brain is just it's a physical brain. It's an organic matter. It cannot think on itself. It uses mind. Mind uses the brain, as a medium to channel information from the higher planes. But before those information comes down from the higher planes, all we get in the end will be a fragmentation of it. We will not get the full content, even though you could understand you could get to a higher level where you understand everything, total understanding. And it's so simple, but by the time it gets down to the lower mind, it becomes complicated.
Right.
So it's difficult to bring the purity. That's why some people use art and other forms of conveying things from the higher planes, because just words alone are not enough to convey it. And by the time it gets to the physical, it's kind of convoluted. So it's always a struggle to get the perfect, to get the perfect, the correct thing. So what I tend to do, I use a command that I would remember, and I find that it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Falling dreams. He gets into our memories of the second state merging with the physical, which does anybody feel like something else might be happening besides that for falling dreams?
Well, I always just thought that in my falling dreams, I had them mostly when I was a child, but everybody has them, even as adults. Once in a while we'll have them, or just that where you're lying there and all of a sudden you just jerk because it feels like you've fallen and you're in body, but what you were was just a little out of body and just came back in. That's what I always assumed after I started getting out, because sometimes I would come back in so quickly. I had to learn to come in slower, because usually if I just dive back in, it left me feeling a little disoriented and just a little confused, but like you were saying, you lie there and you let this upload into your brain, and it always did for me. I mean, there were times when I would forget little snippets or something, but for the most part, after I got good at it, I always gave the command to remember and then get out but this falling, I used to have like I described it in class as a feeling of, I could be walking along in a store, I'm walking along my house, wherever, and I would feel like I was falling inside of myself. That was a different thing. I mean, it's a little bit different, but I took that was a signal to me right then that I needed to get somewhere to lie down, because I was going to go out of body. And, and usually it was convenient. It would be in my house. Once in a while, it would be someplace where I was, and I would just have to sit down and be very quiet. And because it wasn't convenient to get out of body. But that falling sensation, I always called it coming loose inside my body, because it was a signal to me that I was trying to get out of body. And I assumed that it meant I had something to do out of body. If it wasn't a planned out of body experience and I felt this, it's like, okay, I'm being called out for a reason. And I always tried to answer that.
Right. All right, Joy?
Yeah, I was going to say I've had very few, I don't really remember my falling dreams, but tons of flying dreams. And especially when I was a kid, those were my favorite dreams. Always wanted to figure out how to fly. Oh, am I going to fly during this dream? I had a couple, one comment was, I've been hearing, because I haven't been able to go flying yet, that it feels quite real, not like when you're flying in your dream or lucid dream, which I love flying in my lucid dreams. It's mostly the thing that I ever want to do, because I love heights. I strangely love heights, and the views and all of that. So I'm hoping that I don't get afraid once I'm able to go flying in the astral, in my second body. Because that's what one of the things I'm looking forward to. But I wanted to ask, have you all ever experienced and it could be I'm coming out of a dream or just starting to wake up. I feel, and I never knew what it was. Now I know what it is, and now I think I know what it is. I feel my head come back down onto the pillow, lay back down onto the pillow, or my arms or my legs, or I feel my body lay back down on the bed. You know, it's almost always though it's my head, I feel it come back down onto the pillow. And then I'm kind of groggy and I kind of wake up and I think, huh, that was weird. Felt like I just laid back my head back down. And so I'm assuming I was probably out of body and then I came back to my body, right? And does that happen to you all?
I felt that many times coming back to my body, and also how Monroe describes like a as you feel yourself integrate back in your body, like a vibration, buzzing feeling.
Yes.
As it goes back in.
Yes.
I felt it.
Yeah, I often now, I don't remember feeling this before, but I now all the time when I come out of sleep, in the sleep cycle, it's not really a buzzing. I want to say more, which I have had the buzzing, but almost always I'm tingling. My whole body's like this tingling. And I always think, okay, let's do the vibration. But it doesn't, it doesn't really happen for me. Only once, when this all started like over a year ago, I had, I want to say violent vibrations, but it was wonderful. It wasn't violent bad. It was amazing. And at the same time, I didn't hear a jet engine and all this loud noise that people hear, but I heard beautiful music and the wind blowing through the music. And it was like wind chimes, kind of. It's hard to explain. It was all this beautiful music, like surround sound. And I was vibrating. I could have sworn if my husband was awake, he would see my body arched and lights coming out of my body, because I felt like through my closed eyes, I could see the lights, the golden and the lights. And then this was, at the very beginning of all of this, I hadn't done anything yet. And then it was just a few, really not, maybe a minute at the most. It wasn't very long at all. And I had no idea what to do. And then it stopped and I just sat there with I opened my eyes, like nothing, like I just felt normal, but like what just happened? It's so hard to explain. The next day I tried to explain it to my husband and I'm thinking, he thinks I'm lost it or something, right? It was so amazing. Well, I see Susan nodding, so I'm glad. Oh, yeah, I'd love to hear what you think about all that. But ever since, I've never had that kind of strong, vibrations.
Yeah, Susan.
The sound, the music that you heard, I've had that experience several times, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And I've described it a little differently than you because I think that we hear it differently. But the first time that it happened to me, I had gone out of body, and it was strong vibrations. Got out of body. I just shot straight up to the roof without even really thinking about it. And I paused when I got up there because I was hearing this music. I didn't go any further. I was just right above my roof and I heard this music and where is the music coming from? And it was so beautiful. And it's so hard to describe it because the way I described it, you can hear the wind in it. It sounds like wind. It's not wind. It sounds like a bit like a light wind blowing, but I described it as sounding somewhere between bells and voices making this, but it was tunes.
Mine didn't seem to have a particular melody. It was, I want to say almost like a xylophone kind of a thing, but it was so, I was also thinking if my husband looked over at me, he would see me smiling because I felt like my physical face was probably smiling, but that was maybe just my astral. But it was just a beautiful, beautiful, I thought I was in divine presence, really. Is what it felt like.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It absolutely feels like this divine chorus almost. For me, it was just almost like, but it wasn't quite voices. It wasn't quite instrumental. It was just this beautiful sound that just kept repeating itself. And when I looked back down, because I thought, okay, it's coming from where I came from. And I looked back down and this is the strangest thing. It looked like I had come out of a pipe that had just burst open, and it was just it was just laid back like this around its edges, and but it was colorful, and it was beautiful, and it was moving, and the sound was coming from down in that. And I thought, am I looking back down through my cord? Because I thought that I was looking at the chakra that I had come out of. That's what it looked like to me. That's what I thought. I even when I got back into body, that was the only explanation I could come up with, is that I'm looking back at this chakra that I had just blasted out of. And these were the sounds that were associated with that chakra. And these were the colors that were associated with that chakra. It was absolutely beautiful. It was indescribably beautiful. The sound, but the music, the sound it's a divine sound. It's just, you can't describe it really.
Yeah, Monroe has areas like that too, where he talks about the sound, divine sound, where he doesn't want to leave.
Yeah.
I believe it's locale too, and he doesn't want to come back, and the helpers force him back to his body. He doesn't want to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've experienced that one. What I found with the sounds and the music is that there are different kind of levels of music that we can pick up. We can actually pick up radio waves, like what you hear, because I've once had a TV channel, radio channel on, playing music. And I've also experienced that music on the different planes. It's like they've got different tunes. Now that one that Robert Monroe had, I think I've had something similar to it.
Let me get into the last part here. He talks about senses and out-of-body experience. And the only two senses he doesn't experience are smell and taste. Has anybody ever experienced smell or taste while out of the body?
Both.
I've experienced taste.
I've experienced smell and taste.
And I've also experienced smell.
Yeah.
Because those our psychic side, I've got all those 5 senses.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be homing into them when we're on the psychic plane to strengthen them so that it will manifest on the physical.
Yeah. Yeah, I've experienced both.
Yeah, Monroe had a hard time with that. Okay.
Well, those will be passing here to develop.
I was going to suggest someone who travels, he said that he will put things in his mouth and that he can taste them and get information from them, from different objects when he's out.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember he said that. I've never tried that. But I remember that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Chapter 15. Sexuality and the physical sex drive and the out-of-body experience. What she says is really strong. And during this time, and I guess in the late 1960s when he writes this, he feels some guilt and sin in bringing this subject to light. Of course, back then, it makes sense. And Monroe had no idea that he had such strong undercurrents of sexual desire, as strong as it was when he was out of body. Would anybody like to comment on the sexuality out of body?
Well, I like to make a comment. Most of our repressions and sexual stuff are all stored in our psychic body anyway. So if we didn't know whether we had an ego or we didn't know whether we had all these drives, we'll find them on the psychic plane.
Right.
And it's usually, it's usually exaggerated. It's usually over the top. And when I say exaggerated over the top, it just means that coming from, because it's an astral sex, it's more of an emotional thing. Because our astral body is to do with our emotions. So basically, the part of the sex that you'll be experiencing on the astral plane will be what you feel emotionally when you have sex. So there might not be any ejaculation or you might not come, because the coming part takes place on the physical.
Right. But yeah.
That's for men. That's for men. Women.
Yeah. Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, astrally, women can achieve orgasm. That's been studied. But men know. that will bring you right back to your body. So
Yes.
women have the advantage there. But I've noticed when I've taught classes, we talked about this a lot, that one of the first things that when you start going out of body regularly, one of the first things that you notice, if you really pay attention, is this, when you get out of body, is like this, a sexual desire. I always call that part of astral ADD, you know, as part of our we get out of there and there's, the possibilities are limitless, and you understand that as soon as you get out. And so if you don't have a tight grip on where you want to go and what you want to do, that's the first thing that occurs to you, which weirdly, I don't know why, but it is. All you have to do is you say, oh, well, that's interesting. That might be fun to do later. But right now I have to go do this. And so you go do that. But then the actual, like if you get into higher planes, higher levels, and you meet with people that you've known before or whatever, the way I've experienced it, it's not like the sexuality we experience here. It's more like if you take two candles and you put them together, you morph. You just kind of meld into each other, and it's kind of a rescue thing, because if you go out of body, say you've been sick or you're really, really tired, physically tired or whatever, and you go out of body, and you can find someone that you have known, you know, whatever, or somebody that you're familiar with, and it can be male or female. It does not matter there. This is an exchange, but you kind of merge like that, and then when you come apart, you feel this balance. You feel like where you were lacking, or you felt like you were you needed energy in a certain way before, you have it, because you give what is needed to the other person just kind of, it's an energy exchange. That's how I experienced it. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing, but it's different. It's very different. There was nothing, I felt nothing emotional about it whatsoever. It just was this wonderful feeling of being an energetic being and merging with another energetic being, a friend, of anybody, you know, just somebody. It's not, you're going to just go pick up somebody you don't know. It's not like that. It's a family member, a friend, or somebody that you've had other lifetimes with or something. But if there's, you just want to experience this, and it's not even necessary to ever experience it if you don't want to either. But it's just this merging of where that was the best way I could think of to describe it. If you put two candles together, you have two flames, you put them together, you get a little bit brighter flame. It flares for a minute, and then you come back apart. And you know, I'm assuming that both parties feel, or it can be 3 or 4 people too. Arthur Ford talked about that, you know, that he used to go out in groups, and they would, and a lot of them would say, yeah, we'll do that. You know, we haven't done that in a while. Let's do that. Let's try that. And you also take from those people some of what they know. I mean, you feel like you've gotten something from them when you go back to your body. That you've taken a little bit. It's just kind of hard to explain, but it's to me, it's a very high experience. And it was something that in the beginning, it's like, I read about it. So it's like, okay, I have to try this. And I have wonderful people that guide me out of body and show me all of these things, and so I tried, you know, wanted to know what that was about. And it was very interesting. It was very wonderful, and I would always feel better when I got back in body. I would feel more balanced, very balanced.
Joy?
Susan, I was just wondering if you, so this is something that has to be mutually agreed upon. It's not like you're going to be astral taken advantage of, or I also heard, I don't know, you know, you hear all kinds of things and read all kinds of things that lower or energy suckers or lower level want to do that to suck your energy from you or something like that. Do you know anything about that?
I've never experienced it myself. I've read about it, but I've never had that experience myself. I never have.
Monroe talks about it as like a handshake. They'll say it's like, that's how a lot of times how you shake hands, and the astral out of body is that the sexual contact part of it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That sounds really good.
So I was listening to Bob, you know, my big toe, Bob, I can't remember his last name.
Tom Campbell? No.
Tom Campbell.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Bob's. There's so many Bob's in this. Yeah, one of his sessions, and one of the women was saying during the vibrational stage, for her, it was almost like an hour orgasm. So is that something that is people, maybe only women, I don't know about men, but does it feel like, it didn't for me when the one time that I had the very violent kind of amazing, it didn't feel like that at all. And like I said, I usually just have a buzzing, but I was curious about that, Susan, or anyone else.
Oh, say that again. What was the actual question?
Well, does that sound like that's out of the ordinary, or is that kind of what some people will experience, almost because you were saying,
during the vibrational part?
Yes.
Yeah, see, I've never experienced that during the vibrational part. I never have. But I'm real utilitarian. I'm very practical and mechanical. When I lay down, when I learned how to do it, when I would just always have a plan, and I would stick to it. I would just stick to it. Vibrations are for getting out of body. Boom, boom, boom. You know, it was just like 1, 2, 3, out, and go do what I had to do, and I had to learn how to get past the astral ADD, and yeah, but I've talked to other people who have had the experience, and it was women. It was mostly women, because there again, if a man experiences that, and it leads up to, a woman can have an orgasm out of body, man cannot. It will bring them back. A woman will stay out of body.
Oh, the men will come back. The women don't. That's interesting.
It will pull them back, yeah, because it's physical with them. You know, it's like it will just bring them back for some reason. It always brings them back to body. So they have that. Women have the advantage there if that's what they're looking for. You know, but I've talked to, but it's been women that have had that experience vibrationally during the vibration stage. That have had that.
Interesting. Okay.
Can I come in now?
Yep. Come on.
Okay. Yes. Like I was trying to explain, there are different forms of astral. There's the astral sex, and there's even etheric sex. The etheric sex is the one where you have entities or stuff or someone could come in and want to have sex with you. Because someone who can project can do that. Because I've known women, I've known females who've complained about a particular person who does that. So I know that part is possible. So there's also the astral sex, but the one I forgot her name was explaining, because I forgot your name. The one where you said that you merge together. That is a different form. That is not sex. That is when two minds merge together. I've experienced that too. Yeah. Okay, because when those two minds merge together, something happens with that process. The person you merged with is able to see into your world, and also you're able to see into their world. So it's almost like it's like the two of you have just you're sharing your soul. You're both bearing your soul open to each other, and each of the other person can see into the other person. I've experienced that before. It's a very, very powerful. It's a very, very powerful. It's a very, very powerful thing to to experience. So there are different levels. That level is the level we have the level of the psychic, and we've got the level of the spirit. So what you were talking about is the mortal spirits. That's why you said you did not feel any emotions. Well, it's totally detached from the emotions. Totally detached. Everything is looked at in a very objective, in an objective manner, and detached. That means that you're in the mortal spirit. It's called the mortal spirit, and that's the only out of the bodies that can go through walls and do all that stuff. The astral body can't go through wall. Because when you project onto the astral plane, you're not on the physical plane. Your room might look like your room, but you're not in the physical plane. So you can't go through the wall. That's been my experience anyway.
Monroe says here, the sexuality in locale 2, so he's mentioning this in locale 2, is as ordinary as shaking hands. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes
Yep.
more sense. Yes. Because
So,
that's
yeah.
where you get rid of all that shit anyway. That's where you're supposed to get rid of all those, get it out of your system on that level. You can't take it to the higher planes. You can't have sex on the higher planes. It's
Right.
on the lower planes. That's where we get to use all that.
And then Monroe, he mentioned here that he actually has sexual charges even when he meets men sometimes in different locales. So he'll have a sex charge, as he calls it, even meeting men. It also considered it a handshake.
We all have our fetishes.
He had a story
his own
there.
sexuality. Sorry, his own sexuality doesn't have to be like our own. We all have our own individual, how we do our thing. So I read that part too. You mentioned about a sex pool.
The sex, when he had like five people in the room. Yeah. And they all, every time they shook, they did a sexual exchange, you know, with each other. As he would get it each, and then 4 of them were men, and 1 of them was a woman.
Yeah. It's possible. It's possible. Yeah, that does happen. That is possible on the astral plane. Yes.
And then he brings up a story where he had people stay over his house, and when he went to sleep, he did his out-of-body. He had an out-of-body experience, and he detected a woman in the house that was staying there that recently had a lot of sexual activity happen in the physical for the past week. So when he met her out of body, he got attracted to her sexually, but when he was ready to do a sexual exchange with her, she says, "No, I'm too tired." She goes, "I don't really want to do that." He respected her. He found out the next day that through his wife, he sent his wife up to ask her if she was sexually drained. And she said she was from a physical relationship. So he made a little verification with that, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I actually find that out that some of them could say you're on the astral plane and you met a female, say, "Can you have sex?" They can actually say no, that they're not in the mood, or they cannot. There's a choice. You can't just drag them. They can say no.
Right. Yeah, he talks about people who, in the beginning, Monroe was cautious about having any sexual activity because he thought he would be cheating on his wife. So he would make himself go back to his physical body as soon as possible so he didn't get himself in that situation until he worked out with his wife that he was allowed to do that. And he actually says here, Monroe tells his wife she's very well indoctrinated by this time of what Monroe was doing out of his body sexually. So she was okay with it, and she didn't. And they worked it out together. Well, guys, we're pretty close to the end of the night. Does anybody want to have any? Oh, David, go ahead, David.
So I actually read, I have the book here. It's called Astral Love, and it does talk about the 2 views regarding astral lovemaking. And it's a little bit the way Joanne explained it, if I remember correctly, but it also talks about how the only reason we have genders when we are there is for our own identity to help us not go insane, type of thing, to have some kind of identity. So gender specifics there is not really I want to say in existence. And the other thing I remember reading about that, about Astral Love, is that it's the handshake. They talked about how to have a healthy session with a total, well, not a stranger, but someone that you're going to find there, you do this kind of handshake, and you actually discuss, it's at that level they explain that you would discuss where to meet and make this kind of safe place for you to meet, like they showed examples like a cabin, so kind of creating an astral cabin, and you would go there and you would have this connection, and it would be at an astral level as opposed to a physical level. It's an astral level, so it's not again, I mean, everybody can disagree, some people might disagree with this, but it's not gender specific.
No.
Nobody's deprived from this experience.
Yeah.
Now, what I also do remember reading, though, and I will be honest, and I can understand what Susan was talking about a little bit earlier. Women, they are at a, from what I've heard, is that women are at a higher emotional level than a human, than a male most of the time. So because they're at a stronger, higher emotional level, they tend to connect more with the subconscious mind, as opposed to a male that connects more with the critical and logical thinking, which is at the conscious level. So it's their conduit to that other side is probably the bridging gap is a lot. It's not as, sorry, the bridge is not as has such a wide gap, and it's easier for them to connect over there and experience that astral connection, that astral love, than a male. And I do remember them explaining that. So that's why I would give the impression that more women would experience, more gender identified signed at birth, yada yada yada, would experience that more than a male. And that's what I remember reading. So I would say
Okay,
everything I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree mostly with what you said in case of you know, with the male, but yeah, what I find is that it becomes very, very intense, so intense that it becomes physical, and as a result of that, I think it's my sexual the sexual part of my chakra gets so highly activated to the point where I'm now beginning to feel it physical. So once you start feeling physical, then bam, you're back in the physical body straight away. It's the same, like if you go out projecting and you get too excited, you will come back into your body because that excitement links you back into your, picks you back into your physical body. As for women having it longer, I don't know, since I'm not a woman, but that appears to be how, you know how it goes. Yeah. And another question you mentioned was about the gender thing. Yes, because I remember there was one time I had sex with a male, and it felt as if I had it felt as if I had a vagina. It was quite funny, but it was quite, and that one too was very, very intense, very, very was very, very intense. I had to stop it in the end because I knew that if it continues, I would wake up, and I didn't intend to wake up. So I exercised some control on it.
Interesting.
That was the only one occasion when I was able to exercise control.
Yeah, I've had both too, both male and female astral sex.
Yeah.
I hate to be a party pooper, but I've got to go take cold medicine, so I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
Friday.
Susan, I'm going to close it out here. Anyway, it's past due. Thanks everybody for coming. Next meetup's going to be on Friday. And we're almost done with the book. We got that. And then one more meetup, and then we're finished with the first book.
Okay.
So thank you,
Thanks
everybody, for sharing and coming.
Great.
Bye, Susan.
Bye.
Bye all.
And we'll see you Friday.
Okay.